Monkey D. Garp is built different. The grandfather of Luffy and the father of Dragon truly didn't disappoint in chapter 1080, unleashing the greatest haki feat as well as probably the strongest attack in the entire series thus far. What's truly incredible is that Garp is weaker than he once was due to old age, so just imagine how much of a beast this man was during his prime. This also does make certain characters look good, such as the Admirals and Akainu, who are currently in their prime, and Luffy, whose ceiling has just gotten even higher, but we're not talking about them, we're talking about the hero. The man known as the hero, both highly respected and feared throughout the world, was chasing some of the most notorious pirates in history, such as the Rocks Pirates, Roger, Whitebeard, Shiki, Don Chinjao, Shaki, and the Kuja Pirates. Garp was Roger's rival, cornering him and nearly killing him on many occasions, the same man that was evenly clashing with Whitebeard for several days, and he had no devil fruit, which should show you just how strong Garp really is. And Roger respected him, stating that if you're gonna send a marine after him, at least send Sengoku or Garp. Roger and Garp even teamed up at one point to take down the formidable Rocks Pirates, considered to be one of the strongest pirate crews in history, and their captain is seen as the greatest and most dangerous rival of Roger, with this crew consisting of Big Mom Kaido, Whitebeard, Shiki, Ochoku, and many other legendary pirates. Heck, Roger asked Garp to raise his own son, which is wild but shows just how much mutual respect these two have. But Rocks and Roger aren't the only legendary pirates that he has history with, as alongside Sengoku teamed up to take down the legendary Shiki, who is considered a rival of Roger, and when he was alive, it was his, Whitebeard, and Roger's era, so basically consider them the Yonko of back in the day, or I like to call it the Three Kings era. There's also the legendary Don Chinjao, another character I think people sleep on, who at one point had the strongest head in the world, powerful enough he can split a continent of ice in half, and in order to prepare for this, Garp pulverized 8 mountains and broke his head, which was an insane feat in of itself. And even at the age of 76, he was able to throw a cannonball that dwarfed the Sunny Goat. This guy's an absolute monster. So yeah, Garp has always been considered a haki master, and he's beaten and rivaled with characters that have Conqueror's haki, so him to have it makes a lot of sense, as he's considered a hero, one of the best in the business, so him having an indomitable will that cannot be shaken makes a lot of sense for his character. He has the will of a king. I think what's truly shocking is that Garp is able to do this in his old age, proving that he really was holding back during Marineford War, and if he really wanted to let loose, the Whitebeard pirates, I dare say, would not have stood a chance. Similar to Shanks and Luffy, Garp is one of those characters that Oda just loves, and you can tell from the way he puts his effort and time into his story and giving him this legend that not many characters or marines have. In fact, originally he was the one who inspired Luffy to become a pirate and gave him the Gum Gum fruit, so obviously Oda always had plans for Garp the hero. But the question is, how did he become the hero? Well, in fact, it wasn't from his days chasing Roger or fighting him, but in fact earlier in his pirate career, in fact 38 years earlier, when he teamed up with Roger to defeat the Rocks Pirates in this crazy event called the God's Valley Incident. I don't need to go into detail because we all know what this is. Despite having very little information, a lot of stuff went down. He had to protect the celestial dragons and their slaves, something he himself does not like, as he does not respect the celestial dragons because they are scummy people, and he was forced to team up with a fellow pirate in order to take down this evil man named Rocks and his pirate crew. Now, unfortunately, very little is known about this incident, as no one involved likes talking about it, especially Garp. I find it interesting that despite being a D-Clan member and clearly despising the Celestial Dragons, Garp is still a Marine, when everything would dictate he should actually be a pirate, which leads us to the similarities between him and his grandson. In fact, every island Luffy goes to, he's often hailed as a hero, just like his grandfather. But this isn't too surprising considering the family tree, as Garp himself is considered a rebel within the Marines, and he's always seemed proud of Luffy and his antics, which isn't surprising as Garp basically raised Luffy as his own son. Both share the same moral code, but are on the opposite sides of the spectrum, where Garp is a Marine who is the embodiment of justice and order and protecting others, where Luffy is a pirate leaning more towards his destiny, fate, and is the embodiment of freedom. Oda has done a good job at showcasing the similarities between Luffy and Garp, with Garp looking almost identical to Luffy as a child with a treasure chest and even using a lead pipe as his main weapon, and even Luffy looked exactly like Garp when he's 60 years old, which he drew during a volume SBS. But the similarities don't end there, as both of these guys are subscribed to this channel, something you should do as well. And if you made it this far into this video, don't forget to drop a like and even a comment. I would greatly appreciate it, and even click the bell icon to stay notified and keep updated on this channel. Thank you, and I love you. It is funny that Garp is one of 2 D members to be with the Marines, and one of which ended up defecting after realizing just how corrupt they are. I always viewed Garp as a character who understands the corruptness of the world government, but decided to join the Marines in order to change them from the inside and become a symbol of hope, because in the story, the Marines are the good guys and the pirates are criminals. Just because we follow Luffy's story does not mean pirates are good people. But once again, this does not mean he likes the Celestial Dragons, as the reason he did not become an admiral was because he did not want to take direct orders from them and be under their thumb. But the hate goes both ways, as they tried to get rid of Garp as well, but couldn't due to his accolades and being labeled as the hero. A question that has always bugged me was whether or not Garp knows the truth about the world government and the D clan, because we know his, I guess, best friend Sengoku knows the secrets of the world government and the truth. So I do wonder if Garp himself knows as well. It would make sense if he does because of his relationship as well as being a D member, but I could also see Roger telling Garp what he learned on Laugh Tale because of their odd and complicated relationship. Personally, I believe he knows parts of the truth, such as the will of D. Otherwise, that'd be pretty ignorant from Garp to not know these things, and I could definitely see him doing some digging after the God's Valley incident, which makes me question his relationship with his son Dragon, the leader of the Revolutionary Army, a group considered terrorist as they're going directly against the world government. This obviously leaves a big stain on the legacy of Garp. Similar to Luffy, I do wonder if Garp is low-key proud of Dragon, as he's accomplishing the one thing he was never able to do, and that is to fight against the world government and the Celestial Dragon and try to force change. Garp is a character who's fully aware of how unfair the world truly is, as he hails from the Goa Kingdom, so he understands just how corrupt the nobles and the Celestial Dragons are. But I do also view how Dragon views his father Garp. Does he despise him for working with the enemy? Does he respect him and understand his position? Did Garp also try to force Dragon to become a Marine like Luffy and Ace? There's so many questions, and makes me really wish that Dragon and Garp could also reunite somewhere down the line. But unfortunately for Garp family, quarrels seem to be a common thing within the Monkey D family, as we need to address the elephant in the room, a moment that left a huge stain on his legacy and career, but also the most important day in his career, and that is of course the Marineford War, where he chose duty over his own family, something that characters within the series such as the Dawn chastises him for. This was and still is a very controversial thing, where people hate Garp for choosing his duty over his family, but I don't think the blame is entirely on Garp's shoulder. In fact, I don't think blame is on anyone in this particular situation. People need to understand that Garp was stuck between a rock and a hard place. He's the face of the Marines, the hero, a legend, and couldn't just simply save Ace and become a fugitive, because that would probably be the worst thing he could do in this particular issue. And Ace was warned by several characters about this dark path he was following in, which ultimately led to his demise. But people seem to forget that Garp ultimately made the decision to let Ace get saved by Luffy by giving up and holding back during this war. It was only when Akainu basically called Ace's stepdad a bitch that led to him dying. And in that moment, Garp was literally about to charge at Akainu and kill him. Even Luffy and Sabo understand that Ace made his own decisions and led his own life, and they don't particularly blame anyone in the situation either. But at the end of the day, it was too little, too late. Sabo and them understand that they weren't able to prevent it from happening, but they now learned from the lesson and will not allow a situation like that to happen ever again. This obviously left a lasting impact on Garp personally, where he feels immense guilt for what he did, and he eventually resigned from the Marines because he did not want to go through this again, having to fight against his own family. The fact he's the only Marine in a family of rebels, despite his position, he has an odd friendly relationship with certain pirates such as Roger and Rayleigh, even Dodon having this criminal bandit raise his grandchildren. This was the lowest moment in Garp's life and truly broke him, which led to him changing as a person forever going forward, where eventually it got to this very moment today where he went out of his way to save Kobe despite being a member of SWORD and not technically being a Marine. Garp learned from his lesson in Marineford that he needs to save his loved ones. It doesn't matter the situation, even if it means going against orders, and this is what makes Garp such a phenomenally written character, because of the complexity and nuance of his character. I'd argue he's one of the best written characters in the entire series, and Marineford was a pivotal moment in his life. In fact, I'd argue if he were to be put in the situation again where Luffy was captured instead, he wouldn't even blink twice and save his grandson and go against the world government, not making the same mistake he did with Ace. But that's who Garp is, that despite the situation he is, he usually makes the right decisions, such as giving up and let Ace be freed, which is why I think Roger really respected Garp and even entrusted his own son to him, because he knows that Garp will always do the right thing. Which is why personally I want him to be there during the final war and witness Luffy become Pirate King and finally do what he was meant to do and follow his fate and fight against the world government alongside his son and grandson, which would be a phenomenal moment and show growth with his character. But considering current situations, that might not be the case, because it's possible that he dies during his battle against the Blackbeard pirates. And the reason I say that is because Kobe is obviously following in the footsteps of his master Garp, even being called the hero as well. And we know a huge theme in the story is passing on your will and taking up the mantle and having the new generation surpass the old one. And we've seen this happen in the pirate world many times, but never had we have a situation like this with the Marines, and this could be it, where Garp dies and thus his will is passed on to Kobe and Luffy in a sense, and they surpass him and continue his legacy as the hero. And his death would benefit the story quite a bit, allowing Luffy versus Blackbeard to be a lot more intense and personal. It could affect a lot of characters and their growth, like Kobe, Luffy, and Dragon. Even though his death would be tragic, I do think it's necessary for the overall story, although I'd rather it would happen later on in the series. But that doesn't mean he might die. In fact, he could still get captured by the Blackbeard pirates, as we learned his true motive. He wants to turn his nation into a kingdom and become king, affiliated with the world government and using Kobe as a bargaining chip. But with Garp there, he could use him as a bargaining chip instead, because he holds a lot more name value. But similar to the death of Whitebeard and Roger and how they changed the pirate landscape, this could be a way for the Marines to change as well with the passing of Garp. And we've seen many times through the series that it's with death that change really happens, passing on the will to the future generation, and thus ending the legend of Garp against the Blackbeard pirates, saving his pupil and ending his life the way it began, being a hero.